welcome to another GEMDS training video. In this video, we will be covering the configuration of IPsec, also known as Internet Protocol Security, on the GEMDS Orbit MCR via the command line interface. This is part 2 of a multi-part series of IPsec videos. Please see our other videos on this topic as well. Configuring IPsec on the Orbit MCR consists of the following: configuring the VPN service, which includes the IPE policy, IPE peers, IPsec policy, and IPsec connections. Configuring the firewall service, which includes configuring a cell IP address set, a local nets address set, a remote nets address set, the input filter, the output filter, and a NAT rule. Next, we will configure the cell interface by verifying the correct input firewall filter is being used, the correct output firewall filter is being used, and the correct NAT rule is being used. The CLI on the Orbit MCR can be reached in many ways. You can connect to the COM port, you can use the USB port, you can SSH, and finally the CLI is available on the web interface as well. Any of these methods will suffice. The first thing you will want to do is log in as an administrator. After logging in, you are given the operator level prompt. Whenever you see the greater than symbol as the prompt, this is known as the operator prompt. Next, you will want to type configure and press enter. Now you will see the prompt has changed to a % symbol. This is the configuration mode prompt. To begin, we will first work on the VPN service parameters in the order previously given. This means we will start with the IPE policy. We will type set services VPN IPE policy, then we'll give it a name. For this example, we'll just call it IPE policy name. Auth-method, then pre-shared-key, then enter. Next we will type set services VPN IPE policy name, pre-shared key. Then you will need to give it a pre-shared key. For this, we'll just call it "This is my PSK." Note that these commands can be typed individually, as we just did, or as a chain. For example, we could have typed set services VPN IPE policy name auth-method pre-shared-key pre-shared-key again, then the pre-shared key, and we would have ended up with the same result. Now we will set the IPE version to IPE v2 using the command set services VPN IPE policy name version IPE v2. Both ends of the tunnel must be set to the same IPE version. Whenever possible, it is best to set both sides to IPE v2. Next, we will set the cipher suite. To do this, we will type set services VPN IPE policy name cipher suite, and then we'll give it a name. For this example, we'll call it cipher suite name. Then encryption-algo, that's ALGO, then AES-128-CBC, then MAC-algo, then SHA-256-HMAC, then DH-group, DH14, then press enter. Note that you may add additional cipher suites if you are connecting to devices that support different algorithms. We are now done with the IPE policy and can move on to the IPE peer. First, we will reference the IPE policy that we just created by typing set services VPN IPE peer name, IPE-policy name, that's the name we're giving it for this example, then press enter. Next, we will declare the peer endpoint and declare the role as an initiator by typing set services VPN IPE peer name peer-endpoint address, then the address. This will be the public IP address of the IPsec Gateway you are trying to connect to. Then set services VPN IPE peer, IKE peer name, role, then initiator. In the Orbit MCR, when you set the role to initiator, it will respond to IPsec connections, but it will also initiate them. Where the responder role will tell the Orbit to only listen for incoming connections. Now we can move on to the IPsec policy. Here we will simply set the cipher suite algorithms much like we did with the IKE policy. These can be different or the same depending on the device you are trying to connect to. We will type set services VPN IPsec policy, IPsec policy name, cipher suite, then the cipher suite name, encryption-algo, AES-128 CBC, MAC-algo, SHA-256-HMAC, then DH-group, DH14, then press enter. That is all that needs to be set on the IPsec policy. The last part of the VPN service that needs to be configured is the IPsec connection. First we will reference the IKE peer and the IPsec policy we have already created. To do this, we type set services VPN IPsec connection, then we'll give it a name. For this example, we'll just call it IPsec connection name, IKE-peer, then the IKE peer name, IPsec-policy, the IPsec policy name, and then press enter. Next, we will enter the local subnet and remote subnet information by typing set services VPN IPsec connection, IPsec connection name, then local-IP-subnet, and for our example, we'll use 192.168.1.0/24, then remote-IP-subnets, and we'll use 192.168.2.0/24, then press enter. Lastly, for the connection, we will declare firewall rules. Type set services VPN IPsec connection, IPsec connection name, filter, input, then we'll use the in trusted rule, then output, and we'll use the out trusted rule, then press enter. The VPN service configuration is now complete. Now we can move on to the firewall rule section. First, we'll create a blank address set called cell-IP. We will do this by typing set services firewall address-set, then cell-IP, then press enter. Next, we will create a remote nets address set containing the remote subnet. Note that this should match the remote subnets we just created in the IPsec connection. To do this, we will type set services firewall address-set remote-nets addresses, then open bracket 192.168.2.0/24, then close bracket, then press enter. Now we need to set the local nets address set. This will contain any local subnets you have on the Orbit. By default, all local interfaces are in the bridge and will be in the 192.168.1.0/24 subnet. If this has been modified, then it will also need to be modified here. For our example, we will enter set services firewall address-set local-nets addresses, then open bracket 192.168.1.0/24, then close bracket, then press enter. Assuming the cell interface will be using the default rules of in untrusted and out untrusted, we will simply modify the existing rules to allow IKE and ESP traffic into the Orbit. By default, the in untrusted rule comes with a rule 1, a rule 2, and a rule 10. We don't want to break those rules, so we will create a new rule called rule 3. To do this, type set services firewall filter in untrusted rule 3 match protocol UDP DST-port services, then IKE, then press enter. Now we want to allow that rule's traffic into the Orbit, so we will type set services firewall filter in untrusted rule 3 actions action accept, then press enter. Now we will want to do the same thing for the ESP traffic. We'll type set services firewall filter in untrusted rule 4, match protocol ESP, then press enter. Then much like we did in the previous rule, we'll type set services firewall filter in untrusted rule 4 actions action accept, then press enter. Next we will modify the out untrusted rule. Type set services firewall filter out untrusted rule 1 match source dash address, then address dash set, then the cell dash IP address set, then press enter. Then we'll type set services firewall filter out untrusted rule 1 match src dash address, that's source address, add dash interface dash address, and then true, then press enter. Next we will enter set services firewall filter out untrusted rule 1 actions action accept, then press enter. Now we want to create a rule 2 by typing set services firewall filter out untrusted rule 2 match src dash address, then address dash set, and local dash nets, then press enter. Next we'll type set services firewall filter out untrusted rule 2 match dst dash address not address dash set, then remote dash nets, then press enter. Now we want to type set services firewall filter out untrusted rule 2 actions action accept, and press enter. Now we want to modify the default NAT rule. To do this, type set services firewall NAT source rule dash set, then the pre-existing rule is called MASQ for masquerade, so we'll type MASQ, then rule 1 match src dash address address dash set, then local dash nets, then press enter. Next we'll type set services firewall NAT source rule dash set MASQ, this is case sensitive, rule 1 match dst dash address, then not address dash set, and we'll enter the remote dash nets, then press enter. Now we'll type set services firewall NAT source rule dash set MASQ rule 1 source dash NAT interface, then press enter. Our configuration is now complete. We just want to verify that the cell interface is using the correct input firewall rule, the correct output firewall rule, and the correct NAT rule. Finally, we'll type set services VPN enabled true, then press enter. Now we want to commit our changes by typing commit, then press enter, and our configuration is now complete.